Hold David Johnson. I feel like I haven't talked about any player more on this 15 Transactions podcast this year than David Johnson. I've been talking about him as a sell candidate, but now obviously I'm talking about him as a hold because Arizona finally fired Mike McCoy. He's finally gone. But I still don't think David Johnson is this slam dunk obvious buy. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that an offensive coordinator change will help David Johnson. I mean, if you look at the NFL's next-gen stats run charts that they produce, David Johnson just running up the middle over and over and over again all season long. Mike McCoy is a horrendous offensive coordinator. But the main issue with David Johnson is twofold. First, touchdown regression is still going to hit. He didn't find the end zone this past week, but based on his 335 rushing yards, he should have closer to 2 or 3 touchdowns rather than the 5 that he has. That's based off of how running backs have scored over the last 7 years. But I think the bigger concern with David Johnson is, are we sure that he's going to see more work through the air? Because he needs that in order to be a true RB1 in fantasy football. Now, we know the Cardinals' offense has struggled, and even with a new offensive coordinator, there's no guarantee they'll become like a top half offense in the league. So if that doesn't happen, if they're not a top half offense, David Johnson needs some volume. He needs to be fed in a bad offense in order to make up for that inefficiency. And that volume hasn't been there. With Sam Bradford under center this year, Johnson saw 15 of a possible 80 targets. That's an 18.8% target share. Nothing wrong with that. With Josh Rosen, things have been different. He has 15 targets with Rosen under center, but Rosen has thrown 129 passes, lowering Johnson's target share to just 11.6%. That's not a great target share for someone like David Johnson. So I do think there's some worry. Can we just assume that his receiving work will dramatically increase with a new offensive coordinator? Do we even know if Byron Leftwich will be successful? Are we so sure that Arizona will do this 180 and become reliable from a fantasy football perspective? I think it's reasonable to be optimistic. I'm optimistic about this offense too. But optimism doesn't score fantasy points. Actual production does.